Over the last few months, I've been trying to figure out what the best value for the money 1440p 27-inch high refresh rate gaming monitor is, and I've gone through and tested monitors like the Asus TUF VG27AQ1A, the Galax Vivance 01, and today we're taking a look at the Pixio PX277 Prime, another 1440p 27-inch 165Hz refresh rate monitor, to see how it stacks up to the rest. Now, the two previous monitors that I mentioned, along with the Pixio PX277 Prime, are all budget-oriented, value-focused gaming monitors that still hit the 27-inch 1440p 144 to 165 Hz refresh rate mark. And the Pixio might be the best of the bunch, but that'll have to get tested in the next video where I'm going to compare all three monitors, so definitely get subscribed so you don't miss that one. But let's go through a full review of this Pixio PX277 Prime to see how it stacks up. So first off, let's start with price. That is, of course, what makes a value-oriented monitor a value. And this Pixio comes in right around the $250 mark, which is right in line with some of the other budget-oriented 1440p gaming monitors. And from a specs perspective, we get the 27-inch 1440p 165Hz refresh rate monitor that uses an IPS panel capable of 350 nit peak brightness. So that's great when it comes to contrast as well as response times, and still is able to deliver on some HDR content, which is another feature of this panel. You also get FreeSync Premium compatibility, which also entails G-Sync compatibility, not full G-Sync Premium or anything like that, but G-Sync compatible. So we will be able to turn that on with our NVIDIA RTX 3060. And if you're using an AMD card, you can still take advantage of that FreeSync Premium. From a ports perspective, we get two HDMI 2.0 ports along with a DisplayPort 1.2 port. So those two HDMI 2.0 are capable of 144 Hz at that 1440p resolution. And then our DisplayPort 1.2 is what enables that full 165 Hz refresh rate at 1440p. We also have the DC input from our power brick. It is an external power brick with this monitor, which isn't the best. It does add a little bit of extra hassle when it comes to tightening up cables under the desk. But it's not the worst thing when it comes to a value-oriented monitor. It's kind of hard to build the power brick or adapter into the monitor itself at that price point. And then we also get a audio out jack. There's no built-in speakers for this panel, but you do get the audio out so you can still plug in headphones. So that's pretty much it for all of the features and functions of the monitor itself. But now let's get into some of the more build quality and ergonomics focused aspects of this display. Overall, the monitor is built really well. You have very thin bezels around the top and side edges. Of course, the chin at the bottom, like the majority of panels, but it is pretty small on the bottom edge. So no real complaints there. You do have some pretty thick black borders around the actual display. I'm waiting for a monitor that finally delivers like a to the edge display so that we can actually take advantage of the full size of a monitor, or at least shrink the monitor down, probably like 10 millimeters. So waiting for that, but with this value-oriented monitor, we're of course not gonna get some of those features. From an ergonomics perspective, the included stand is very, very simple to put together, just two screws to tighten the base to the actual arm. I wish it was more of a toolless design, or one of those that the screw is already in the arm and you just have to kind of tighten it by hand. But it's still a very, very simple process to put this thing together. You do get very minimal adjustability, zero horizontal angle adjustment, so you can't twist it at all. You just have to move the base around in order to do that, but you do have some vertical angle adjustment, which is nice, a pretty good amount of that as well. And you can also attach this to any VESA adapter that you want to in order to mount it to a desk with an arm or something like that. That will give you more of that ergonomic adjustability if you do want to be able to move your monitor around on the go. So you do have that feature, which is perfect and what most people are probably going to use. But if you do need to use the included stand, it's not the worst one I've ever seen. It's built pretty well. It's pretty strong. You're not going to get any shaking of the monitor or anything like that. From that perspective, it's built really, really well. And the final thing I want to talk about before we jump into the actual display and testing out the screen is the on-screen display. So all we get is a single joystick style toggle on the back of the monitor that allows you to both use all 4 directions, left, right, up, down, as well as pushing in on the button in order to bring up specific menu options or the entire menu itself. If I click down on the joystick, we have instant access to the brightness controls. I have it turned all the way down so it doesn't look super overexposed in the video, but you can have instant access to that by just pushing down on the joystick. And if we push down on the joystick, that is where it actually is the back button for the on-screen display. If we push up on it, we have access to our source control. If we push right on it towards me, then we have access to some on-screen kind of display stuff, timers, FPS counters, crosshair, everything like that. And then if we push left on it, we have access to some of the preset colors, standard, movie, photo, FPS, RTS, stuff like that. So instant access to all of those features. Now there are then the actual on-screen display menu, the full menu that gives you access to everything. So over on the left side, we have access to the FPS that is currently active on the display. And then we have access to all of the display options. So we have brightness controls, contrast, black equalizer, preset aspect ratio, sharpness, and ultra vivid. If we scroll down, we have all of the access to our colors. We can control color, temperature, gamma, hue, saturation, and low blue light. And then if we go to the gaming setup, this is where we're going to have to make some changes on the on-screen display. So out of the box, the monitor does not come with FreeSync Premium turned on, and it doesn't come with HDR enabled either. We're not going to enable HDR specifically for this video. It is capable of displaying HDR, but it's not going to be the best HDR experience on this particular monitor. There's not enough backlight zones, not enough maximum peak brightness at that 350 nit mark to really get good HDR content, but HDR is there if you do want to use it. You're just probably not going to get the best experience with it. We then also have access to our overdrive settings if you do want to turn on pixel overdrive to decrease that pixel response time even further. And we also then have game assist and DCR. You then also have access to all of your inputs, system setup like OSD setup, language, audio. And then we also have user data, which allows us to map specific display settings to an individual user, so that when you log onto the computer and you open up the display or the on-screen display, you can select your specific user, and then your parameters are instantly set up on the monitor. A very nice feature there as well. So the first thing we're gonna need to do with our monitor out of the box is turn on FreeSync Premium. So we're gonna go over to Gaming, Setup, go to FreeSync Premium, and turn that on. So that'll enable us to turn on G-Sync compatibility mode and enable G-Sync in the NVIDIA control panel. And then the second thing we're gonna need to do is turn on full 165 hertz refresh rate, which can either be done in NVIDIA control panel or in display settings. We're gonna go to the advanced panel or advanced display, and we're gonna change it from 60 hertz to that full 165 hertz. And then once we do that, we should also see in our on-screen display, if I keep the changes, so now in our on-screen display, we should see that we're all the way maxed out at that 165 hertz refresh rate on the right side of the on-screen display. Before we were sitting at 60, so now we have the full 165 hertz refresh rate experience on our Pixio monitor. So now all we need to do is check in NVIDIA control panel that G-Sync is turned on. It should turn on when we enable FreeSync Premium, but let's just double check that. And when we open up NVIDIA control panel, we can see that G-Sync is enabled in full screen mode. It's all we really need for this particular option, but you can also then turn it on for both windowed and full screen mode. So we'll just apply that just to be safe. So now we're pretty much set up. That's kind of as simple as the setup is with this Pixio PX277 Prime. Once you get the stand set up, you get the monitor plugged in and hooked up to your DisplayPort. The only real things we have to change is enabling FreeSync, maybe changing some of the color preferences if you like your monitor cooler or warmer, or turning on low blue light settings, and then just making sure that we're set to the 165 hertz refresh rate and have G-Sync enabled or FreeSync enabled on an AMD graphics card. So now that we're all set up, let's start testing the screen to see how it actually performs, what it looks like when it comes to both refresh rate as well as pixel response time. So we use the UFO test just to make sure that we're actually seeing that full 165 hertz refresh rate and making sure that there's no pixel response time issues, smearing, stuttering, ghosting, things like that. And then we'll jump into some games, see what the color accuracy and color performance looks like on this bad boy. It is capable of well over 100% sRGB coverage, so we should get very good color accuracy and color performance out of this monitor. So we'll do all that, and let's jump into it. So first things first, we have the UFO test, and with this, we're really trying to test out whether we have any ghosting, overshooting, overall just poor pixel response time. Now this panel does have an advertised 1 millisecond response time, but we're gonna go into the slow-mo and actually put that to the test and make sure that we're not getting any of that ghosting or smearing. So of course we don't wanna see a ghosted out UFO trailing behind the actual full color UFO. That's more of like a ghosting effect. And we don't wanna get any overshoot where we're overshooting the pixels in front of the UFO where the monitor thinks that the UFO should be, and we're then getting a ghosted out UFO right in front of it. So both of those aren't the best when it comes to picture clarity, and definitely not for response time when it comes to gaming. So we're gonna put both of those to the test and take a look at it in the slow-mo. As you can see, there is very little ghosting or smearing when it comes to this display. We had very little, both trailing edge and leading edge on the UFOs. But we could probably eliminate it or get pretty close to eliminating it by using some of the overdrive settings in this monitor. To actually push a little bit more voltage to each pixel and have them respond a little bit quicker. Now, it's not the best for the longevity of the pixels or the panel overall, but you can use it if you do want that super ultra fast response time with as minimal ghosting as possible. But now it's time to feel what it's like to game on this display. And we'll both do some high refresh rate gaming in a game like Valorant, where we could take advantage of that full 165 hertz refresh rate. And then we'll also play some Cyberpunk to test out some of the colors, what RTX looks like and feels like on this panel. So let's get into some of that testing. So hopping into Valorant, we're really trying to take a look at a game that you can get crazy high FPS and see how this monitor responds. So we're gaming at well over 400 FPS, at least that's what the computer's outputting. But of course, we're hitting that 165 hertz refresh rate constantly on this panel. And as you can see, even at the 30 or 60 FPS that you're watching this on YouTube, it still looks really, really smooth and super responsive. Like being able to hit some of these shots is purely due to the fact that we're gaming on that 165 hertz and we're getting very good pixel response times at that. Extremely, extremely nice monitor, especially for these FPS type games. But if we hop over to a game like Cyberpunk, where it's all about immersion and really getting the lifelike aspects, the reality of it, and the colors and the ray tracing, everything looks really, really nice on this monitor. Even without HDR enabled, we still get a lot of the effects of RTX and those colors really coming through, playing on all high settings with RTX turned on. Overall, it's just like a really, really nice experience on this Pixio PX277 Prime. So overall, I mean, with the quality that we're getting from a display perspective, from a picture perspective in games, as well as the response times that we're getting, the design of it, it is an extremely, extremely good value. You are missing some aspects that you might get in other monitors, like let's say an internal USB hub, internal power brick, things like that. But the benefits of a $250 1440p 27-inch monitor at this price point, it's kind of too good to give up. But we'll have to put it to the test against our other two competitors in the next video. So definitely stay tuned, get subscribed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.